Hey guys, you ready for more Wishtree? Stuff is getting good right now. We're finished chapter 32 last time. And he was just kind of going back to, he's telling Steven and Samar now, because remember he broke the rule about, and he was just kind of giving the story of his life and how all these different people came to America, immigration, and then they were able to start lives in the two homes that used to be brown, and how the girl that lived there, she didn't have anyone to like love, so she put the first wish on red, and she said, "I wish," she whispered, "for someone to love with all my heart." So she was a very caring person. She helped a ton of people in need, but she didn't have anyone that she like married or anything like that. So she was kind of lonely. So that was the first wish, and then many more were to come. So he's still talking to Steven and Samar, and they're still probably in shock, right? And they're just listening, I guess. So let's just keep going. I'm on page 137, chapter 33. As the weeks passed, the piece of fabric on my branch drew many comments. Some of the folks in our neighborhood, the ones from Ireland, would nod not knowingly and smile. To them, Maeve would simply say in her lifting voice, "That's my raggy tree. She's not a thorn, but she'll do just fine." People would come here from other lands, and there were many of them, would frown at the rag or even reach up to remove it. Maeve would warn, "Don't you be touching my wish now," patiently again and again. She would explain how her old home, leaving wishes on a raggy tree, was a time-honored tradition. Now and then, people would ask Maeve what she'd wish for. She'd tell them the truth, with a sigh and a weary smile. "Nothing much, just someone to love with all my heart. Nothing much at all." Sometimes people would laugh. Sometimes they would roll their eyes. "A wish on a rag won't bring you love, dearie," they would say. But usually people gave Maeve a kind smile, a squeeze of the arm, and a knowing nod. And then they too would ask if they could add a wish of their own. So make a prediction. Do you think Maeve, this person from the past, is going to get her wish to come true? Do you think she's going to find someone that she can love? Another year passed. As May neared, I found myself hosting more scraps of fabric than budding leaves. Squibbles tried to steal a few fabric to line his dray. Remember, Squibbles is a squirrel. The mess made of leaves and twigs high in one of my forked branches. I explained he'd have to stick with moss and pine needles until the 1st of May. Wishes, according to Maeve, would not be touched until after May Day. Then the ones that weren't carried off in the wind or dragged to the ground by the rain could be removed by people or by enterprising squirrels. I suspect she made up the rule for my benefit, so I could grow unfettered without the weight of the wet rags dragging me down. Just before dawn on the 1st of May, a young woman approached me. She had dark, wavy hair, wore a tattered gray coat, and in her arms was a wrapped bundle. "Psst," Squibbles whispered me. "Here comes another wish, Red." But Squibbles was wrong. There was no wish. Swiftly, but with great care, the girl placed her bundle in my hollow. What could it be? A thank you for Maeve, I realized. A loaf of bread, perhaps? The girl had probably been one of her patients. Because remember, Maeve was kind of like a doctor without being a doctor, but she was able to help people in her own way. She was gone as quickly as she came. Like a hummingbird, I thought. There, then not there, like a gust of wind. Chapter 35. Let's find out what's in Red's hollow. What did this mysterious lady leave? What was that bundle? Just a few minutes later, Maeve opened the door of the little brown house. She smiled at me and at the scraps waving in the early morning breeze. And then came the cry. Wail was more like it, coming from me? Not the meek peep of a wren chick, not the shy squeak of a mouse pup. No, this was a cry of a righteous indignation. This was a baby. So some mysterious lady put a baby in Red's hollow? What? And just left it there? The baby had a note attached to her blanket. Haltingly, Maeve tried to read it out loud. "Italian," she murmured. Only later, when she consulted one of her patients, did she understand its meaning. "Please give her care. I cannot. I wish you both a life of love." So that must have been what the mother said. I'll read it one more time. So the mother left a note with the baby, and then the mother left. So she's giving the baby to Maeve. Please give the care I cannot. I wish you both a life of love. So obviously this mom was unable to care for that baby. We don't know why, but she thought Maeve could do it. It's really sad. You don't want to be away from your mom. But we don't know what was happening, so no judgment. The baby's hair was black. Maeve's was red. The baby's eyes were brown. Maeve's were blue. The baby was Italian. Maeve was Irish. They were made for each other. Maeve named the baby Amadora, which in Italian meant the gift of love. Chapter 37. We're just cruising through these chapters right now. Many in the neighborhood didn't approve of an unmarried Irish woman raising an abandoned Italian baby. People talked as they will, and they as they must. Some people were even angry. They said hurtful things. They told Maeve that Amadora didn't belong. They told Maeve she and the baby should leave, which is mind-blowing. She's just taking care of a stranded baby. Like, what are you supposed to do? Maeve merely smiled, held Amadora close, and waited and hoped. On dark nights, when hope was scarce, she would sing an old Irish tune mixed with a newer Italian song that she had learned from a neighbor. The melody was sweet, the words were silly. The effect was always the same, a smile from little Amma. Sure enough, the longer Maeve waited, the kinder people grew, and before long, Amma, as she came to be called, was as much part of our messy garden as the rest of us. When Amma was old enough to feed Squibbles and his family, she did. When she was strong enough to climb, she did. And when she was ready to make wishes of her own, she did. Amma grew up steady and honest and kind, like her mother, and had babies of her own, and then grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Eventually, Amma and her husband brought the little brown house and the one right next to it, and painted them blue and green. Years later, they purchased a house across the street and began to rent the blue and green houses to other families. The family grew and prospered and argued and failed and loved and laughed. Always and forever, the laughter kept them going. And when Amma's grandson had a little girl, he chose a fine Italian name for her with a fine Irish middle name, Francesca Maeve. So the story makes a full circle. So now we know who Francesca is. She is related to Maeve. There's a great-great-grandchild, I believe. So this girl, Maeve, let's try to summarize. There's a lot's going on. Moved here from another country, probably from Ireland, right? And then she started living in a house, and she made the first wish, and she was a great person, very kind, tried to help others. It was basically a doctor, but she needed someone to love, and she made the wish. And then someone left a baby, and she had someone to love, so her wish came true. And then that baby named Amma had her own kids. So said Amma grew up steady, had her own babies, and then grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And then they bought a house across the street. And when Amma's grandson had a little girl, so Francesca's great-grandma was Amma. Her great-great-grandma would have been Maeve. So it's kind of cool his family came down, and Red knows the whole story because he's been around for all of it. And they were able to be a part of that neighborhood. So we will read chapter 38 tomorrow. A lot of cool things. Red's going to continue to talk, and then we're going to have to see how Stephen and Samar react to his story. But you can see we're getting pretty far once we finish that. The one and only Bob. So, gotta love Catherine Applegate. Gotta like Wishtree. Sorry I didn't dress up today. I just needed to get the story done. I've been really, really busy today. So, come back tomorrow and we will read more Wishtree.